In just 6 years, this man broke out of maximum security U.S. prisons 4 times. No violence, no tunnels, no tools. Every escape was clean. 3 of the 4 times, he simply walked out the front door. And the last escape was the most audacious of all. He starved his own body, forged a terminal diagnosis, and staged the perfect fake death. He got the state to officially declare him dead, wiping himself off the prison system entirely. They called him the Houdini of Texas. His name was Stephen J. Russell. Stephen started out as an accountant in Texas. Clean record, stable life, never once violent. What changed everything was getting fired from his job in a way he thought was unfair. Instead of spiraling, it woke up something in him, a sharp social instinct and a talent for reading people. He could size anyone up, slip into any persona, and push exactly the right buttons, a natural-born manipulator. After losing his job, he turned that gift toward crime. At first, he staged fake accidents and filed bogus insurance claims, small, low-risk stuff. In 1992, police traced a string of these scams back to him. He was convicted of insurance fraud and sentenced to 6 months in the Harris County Jail in Texas. It was his first time behind bars, but he never planned on serving the full sentence. During his first month inside, Stephen didn't study the walls or the bars, he studied the people. He tracked the guards' shift patterns, their blind spots, when they slacked off, and learned everyone's habits cold. He noticed outside maintenance contractors barely got checked, just wear plain clothes, carry a walkie-talkie, no ID, no sign-in, and you could walk right through. Once he knew the rules, he used a contact inside to smuggle in a set of plain clothes and a walkie-talkie. On the day of the escape, he suited up, grabbed a clipboard, and strolled down the cell block muttering into the walkie-talkie like he was on the job. Not a single crack in the act. When the moment was right, he walked up to the guard post, gave a casual nod, and the guard buzzed him straight through without a second glance. He walked right out the front gate, barely a month into his sentence. After escaping, Stephen fled to Florida under a fake name and got by on small-time insurance scams for 2 peaceful years. In 1994, one of his scams fell apart, and investigators tracing it back uncovered his real identity, along with his record as an escaped convict. He was sent back to Houston to finish the last 5 months of his sentence. This time, he went quietly. After his release, he took a job at a grocery store, low pay, dead-end work, and a life so flat it wore him down. He wanted real money and a life where he didn't have to work for it. In early 1996, he saw an ad for a finance manager job at a major health insurance company. No finance degree, no license, no relevant experience, none of that stopped him. To land the job, he stayed up all night faking a resume, complete with a fake Ivy League degree, and 3 years of made-up experience at insurance firms. At the same time, he crammed the Wall Street Journal and finance textbooks. And within days, he could talk the industry's lingo, jargon, and shorthand like he'd been in it for years. In the interview, his natural confidence and flawless script got him through with flying colors. When the company ran a background check, he set up a call forwarding trick, giving them 3 references that all rerouted to his own phone. He just switched voices and personas to play his own former bosses vouching for him. It worked. He got the job. Once inside, Stephen used his position to run a full-blown scheme, fake vendor accounts, shell companies, and quiet transfers straight out of the company's accounts. He kept ramping it up, all buried under the cover of routine bookkeeping. In about 5 months on the job, he siphoned off roughly $800,000. In the end, it wasn't the fraud that caught up with him. It was something totally unrelated. While applying for a personal home mortgage, a bank employee noticed his account activity was way too big for his salary. Pulling that thread led straight back to the massive fraud at the insurance company. When the company audited its books, they found hundreds of thousands in stolen funds and discovered, to their shock, that their own finance manager was an escaped convict out on parole. Realizing the walls were closing in and his accounts were about to be frozen, Stephen pulled $40,000 in cash, but made the mistake of going back to his apartment for his belongings, where police were waiting and arrested him on the spot. The court set his bail at $950,000, way more than he could afford, and froze his assets, cutting off any chance of buying his way out. He was held at the Harris County Jail to await sentencing. But Stephen wasn't the type to just sit and wait. Even locked up, he was already working an angle. He memorized his case number, the legal procedures, and the right courtroom language, then called the Harris County Records Office pretending to be Judge Charles, the judge on his case, and calmly told the clerk that a sealed appeals hearing had just ruled to lower his bail from $950,000 down to $45,000. The clerk didn't check, just followed the official order out of habit and updated the court records. Stephen then talked a bail bond company into fronting the payment. And with nothing but one phone call and some smooth talk, he walked out completely legally, pulling off his second escape. It took a full 5 days before Harris County officials caught the fake bail order. By then, Stephen was already gone, back in Florida. Police put together a task force and traced his phone activity, eventually catching him at a beachfront hotel in West Palm Beach. At trial, the judge stacked the embezzlement charges on top of the repeated escapes and handed him 40 years. Stephen took the sentence without a fight. No appeal. Nothing. Which even caught the prosecutor off guard. In September 1996, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice transferred Stephen to the state's highest security prison, warning the guards ahead of time about his talent for manipulation and disguise. The staff figured their tight security would finally hold him. They underestimated how sharp he was. A few months in, Stephen started studying the schedules and uniforms of the medical staff, and noticed their blue-green scrubs looked nothing like inmate clothes or guard uniforms. Easy to spot, and almost nobody checked medical staff IDs. Once he found that gap, he got his hands on paint and dye from the prison workshop and started a slow process of recoloring his clothes. He soaked his white prison uniform in dye over and over, letting each coat dry fully before adding the next, fine-tuning the shade each time so it wouldn't look too faded or too fake, until he had scrubs that could pass for the real thing. On the 13th of December, 1996, Stephen finished breakfast, found a blind spot in the cell block, changed into his homemade scrubs, and became a medic just off the night shift. He walked up to the guard post with his usual easy confidence and the guard on duty, too wrapped up in a personal phone call to pay attention, waved him through without checking a thing. That was his third successful escape, just 3 months after being transferred to the state's highest security prison. Once outside, he knocked on the door of a nearby house, claimed he'd been in a car accident on his way home from work, and asked for a ride into town. And people believed him. From there, he took a cab, posed as a surgeon rushing to an emergency at a Houston medical center, and slipped away once he got to the hospital, vanishing from the radar completely. 3 escapes shook the entire Texas justice system, and Agent Kaufman took charge of a task force, treating this string of prison breaks as a serious embarrassment for the state's correction system, following leads through his contacts and phone records. The team tracked Stephen down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and caught him after 10 days on the run. This escape added another 5 years to his sentence, bringing the total to 45 years, with no chance of parole for at least 11 years. Unlike his first 3 escapes, which relied on exploiting rules and fake identities, his 4th breakout was an 8-month gamble that used his own body as the bet. While studying parole regulations in prison, he found a loophole. Inmates with terminal illnesses could apply for early release on humanitarian grounds. It was a rule meant to show mercy to dying inmates, and he used it perfectly. He decided to fake being in the final stages of AIDS and get the state to declare him dead. The first step of the con was pure self-destruction. For months, Stephen starved himself and used medication to induce vomiting, dropping weight fast, losing muscle, and turning pale, recreating exactly what a dying patient looks like. The second step was the paperwork, using a typewriter in the prison library. He wrote up a fake medical report showing he'd tested HIV positive and was getting worse, then submitted it through the prison's internal mail system to the medical department. Months of physical deterioration paired with a medical file that looked airtight convinced the prison to stop double-checking. They believed he was dying and moved him to a hospice care facility. In early 1998, once he got to the hospice, he pulled off the final move. Posing as Adam Reese, an AIDS clinical trial specialist, he called the hospice office and said arrangements had been made for him to join a new trial. And just like that, he had a pass to leave. Once he was out, he forged a full death certificate himself, signed with a fake doctor's name, and mailed copies to the prison, the hospice, and the parole office to make it official. From that point on, in every record across the entire Texas justice system, Stephen J. Russell was officially dead. No one looking for him, no one chasing him, gone without a trace. He should have laid low and lived out a quiet life under the radar. But in the end, he couldn't help himself. After a few weeks of recovery, he went right back to his old tricks. Walking into a bank in Dallas, posing as a millionaire, and applying for a $75,000 loan. A slip in his story tipped off the bank's vice president, who called the police. Sensing trouble, Stephen quickly faked a heart attack and got rushed to the hospital. Even under guard in the hospital, he posed as an FBI agent, called in to have his own security detail lifted, and the hospital bought it and let him go. By the time real FBI agents showed up, he was long gone. Agent Kaufman was stunned when he heard everyone thought Stephen was already dead. He pulled the file and got back an official record confirming Stephen had died of illness. Certain something was off, he reopened the investigation and threw everything into finding him. Police traced phone calls and fax records and tracked him down to Florida. On the 5th of April, 1998, Stephen was picked up by waiting officers while going to collect a fax. His fourth arrest, and the end of years of escapes. Fed up with being humiliated again and again, the Texas justice system combined all his fraud and escape charges and sentenced him to 144 years with no chance of parole. He was sent to the state's highest security unit, a place usually reserved for serial killers and violent repeat offenders. But Stephen never hurt anyone in his life. No violence, no weapons, nothing but fraud, forged documents, and a string of daring escapes. That's it for this episode. See you next time.